Hello everyone. Today I'm going to do clouds. There are many different shapes, forms. This is my version of how to do a cloud. Just to give you a rough idea, clouds think in terms of 3D. It's not flat. The simplest form, if you think about as an oval, so let's say that's a light source. So you're trying to think there's a shadow, obviously. And if I think in terms of slightly 3 or 4 clumps, like a kid's drawing a cartoon, so you're looking at shadows. Maybe a little bit of shadow. So, and that's what you're trying to do. So if that's a rough cloud, you're looking at a 3D globule. There's a lot more shadow in the bottom because it's a lot more dense, and few shades here and there. That provided the light source. Always remember the light source. In this exercise, I'm going to try to attempt something simple. I'm not going to draw the clouds, obviously. So there's going to be a horizon, and maybe there's one big cloud, and something like that. We'll see how it goes. Maybe I'm going to stop maybe there. There's a little darker, and there's a piece of cloud. And the other thing they do when you look at the masters, to give the sense of scale, they usually add a little bit of tree line, or maybe a couple of small birds, or a small boat. It gives you how big the clouds are. That gives you the scale. In this case, maybe I'm going to do a little bit of maybe a grass or something like that. That's not important, but what we're trying to do is just the clouds. For this exercise, I'm going to use a couple of stiff bristle brush if needed to soften the edge. Bristle brush are good for softening. These are just a regular oil painting brush. Plenty of water, so tissue to work, and there's a couple of mop, and this one's going to be semi-wet. And on the right side, I have a John Pike palette. So maybe a couple of colors I'm going to use is cerulean blue, ultramarine blue, and cobalt blue. I'm going to use a little bit of cobalt blue and maybe a little bit of violet. And then for cloud, I'm going to use a little bit of Payne's gray. So cerulean blue, a little bit of violet, gray. This is not the volume I would need it, but I'm going to dip in as and when it's needed. I'm just showing these are the 3 primary colors I'm going to use it. So before I start, also there's 2 bowls of water. One is where I clean my brush, and that one is supposed to be very clean, but it's still bluish, so I'm not going to clean it. I'm going to use that to wet the brush. Obviously, the paper is Saunders 300 grams rough, and I have taped it so that it doesn't peel. Let's say that's my horizon, and I'm going to do clouds above from that. So a little bit of water. I'm not going to do super wet, it's just a little bit of dry. So it's a big mop, so covering the volume is super easy. I'm looking at an angle just to make sure everything is covered. And also when you look at the paintings are always never white. Sorry, the clouds are never white. A good way to check is if you take a piece of white paper and then keep it right next to the cloud when you watch it, it's never white. So there's always this little bit of color. So I'm going to use a very light cerulean blue. I'm going to just go, that's the cloud shape. Very little cloud shape. So I don't know whether the camera is picking up. It's a very low cloud shape, and I'm gonna go little bold and then add a lot more pigment. So that the first step is the clouds, and the second stage I'm going to do is a little darker than I wanted, but I'll commit to it. I'm gonna do and just using a slightly bigger brush to just do. Cover till the horizon. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to come in. I'm going to just use the second coat. That's the violet. I'm just doing it's a little dark, but that's all right. Okay, and a little bit of gray. The paper is still wet, so it's doing all the mixing which is needed. As I said, the areas where I think it's a bit too sharp, I'm going to just soften the edge. So this area, it looks a bit too dark. I'm going to just come and soften the edge. The clouds, everything, you're looking at really soft edges. So I got a bit of a tissue. I'll clean the brush as and when is needed, so that you're trying to do is I'm going to take a little more cloud. Just to give that shape. And come back a little more purple or violet. So the last thing I want is those dark edges. I'm coming back and I'm cleaning up, making sure there's no dark line. Everything is smooth. Okay, that's where I am, and I'm gonna add a little more gray, few areas, just a little bit, just to darken up a little more. Just enough. It gives you a little more volume, but again, if it's too dark, come back, and I don't want is sharp edges. I want it really soft. A bristle brush like this would do an excellent job. I'm just picking up a little more pigment. All right, let that sit down, and if needed, I'm gonna come in and then add one more layer in the horizon, some clouds, just to give okay, that's enough. Okay, so while that one is drying, I just want to do a simple, maybe a little bit of crease, as I said, just to give perspective of how big the clouds are. So I'm going to try to take a lot of pigment. In this case, this is Hooker's Green and maybe a little bit of burnt sienna. Okay, and I'm going to just come in. Don't worry about certain places mixing, that's absolutely fine. And it gives you some perspective. And maybe I'll come with a little bit of yellow ochre. Gives a little bit of field. And I'm intentionally leaving a little bit of white blending in, not blending in. And okay, so I'm just waiting for the clouds to dry a little bit. There's a bit too much water here. Okay, and while I'm just gonna come in, give a dry brush strokes, gives you a feel for the grass, the foreground. That should do it, because all we are trying to do is just create a little bit of the scale, and that's it. Thank you again. I'm going to do a few more different types of clouds, maybe different colors. Let me know if there's a particular type of cloud or a particular subject about clouds you want me to cover. I'm happy to cover that. Hit that notification button and subscribe to the video, please. Help me by liking the video, and till next time, see you soon. Bye and happy watercolors.